Y'all, this is David Locke, and this is my blog, Boots and Bow Ties, about everything cooking, gardening, and home. And today I'm going to teach you how to make a traditional French stew called cassoulet. Now, traditionally, cassoulet is made with duck, and it takes hours in the oven. But we've replaced the oven with the Instant Pot, and we've replaced the duck with kielbasa sausage. You could really use any sausage you like, or really any protein you like. The thing that I like most about this is it can be made ahead, and I love anything that can be made ahead. Recently, I made this for my music director and his family, and I was able to completely cook the cassoulet and prepare it, doing all of my sauteing in the Instant Pot, then taking the liner of the Instant Pot out, putting it in the refrigerator, covering it over, and then right before I wanted dinner to be ready, take it out about an hour before you're going to cook it, let it come to room temperature, and then simply put it back in the Instant Pot, and then pressure cook it for about 45 minutes. So let's talk about the ingredients you're going to need. Of course, you're going to want the kielbasa sausage, or really any sausage you want. Bacon, we're going to render a little bit of that, and we're going to cook our vegetables in the fat. You're going to want 2 tablespoons of a packed brown sugar. That adds a sweetness and a great nuance to this dish and also helps the vegetables to caramelize. You're going to want about a tablespoon of yellow mustard. The original recipe I worked with called for Dijon, but I didn't have that one day, and I used just regular yellow mustard along with a teaspoon of powdered mustard and found that I liked the flavor better. You're going to want a bay leaf. You're going to want 2 carrots, a yellow onion, a cup of wine to deglaze the pot. And if you don't want to use wine, you can always use just more stock. So just use an extra cup of stock if you don't want to use the wine. Of course, you're going to want some fresh cracked pepper and some sea salt. And then the other thing you're going to want is a white bean. Now, you can use cannellini beans or any white bean you have on hand. I have found that great northern beans are readily available and work great in this. One of the things I do is I soak my beans for about 30 minutes in warm water before I put them into the Instant Pot, and that way they get nice and soft. And then, of course, we're going to want some chicken stock, or you could use vegetable stock with this. So let's get all of our ingredients ready, and I'll show you how we begin to assemble the cassoulet in the Instant Pot. The first thing I do is I just simply take all of my beans and I just put those in hot water, just making sure they're covered before I start to assemble the cassoulet. We've got our Instant Pot set to saute, and we're going to put our bacon in our Instant Pot. I've cut it into little pieces, and we're going to let that render for about 5 minutes. Didn't need to start it with any oil. Use a slotted spoon to remove all of the bacon. It's browned nicely, and we're going to drain it here on this paper towel. Next, we're going to put the kielbasa into the Instant Pot and begin to brown it for about 5 minutes. Now, this is already pre-cooked, but we're just going to brown it nicely in the rendered bacon. Our sausages are really cooking very nice. They've started to brown nicely, and now we're going to remove those with a slotted spoon to a plate to drain. At this point, you should have removed all of the meat, and you should have about 2 tablespoons of oil. If you have more than that, take a paper towel and tongs and wipe just a little bit out. But now we're going to put in our onions and carrots, and we're going to allow them to brown for 5 to 7 minutes. You can see we're getting some beautiful brown caramelization on the bottom of the pan. That's what we're going to deglaze. And that wonderful flavor is going to flavor our stew. All right, so let's begin stirring that around. If it gets a little dry, which mine tends to get a little dry, add about a tablespoon of the wine at this point. And then the last minute, we'll put in 2 cloves of minced garlic and cook it until fragrant. My onions and carrots look like they're getting a little dry, so I'm just going to add in a little bit of the white wine and stir that around. It'll begin to deglaze the pan just a little bit. My onions are getting nice and translucent at this point. I'm going to put in 2 minced garlic cloves and just let that get fragrant. Now we are going to deglaze our pan with that cup of wine. It's gonna really cool off the pan, and we're just gonna go through and kind of scrape up all of those beautiful brown bits. Again, if you don't want to use wine, you could use stock at this point. You just want to use a liquid to help you scrape up all that brown goodness. Now we're going to return this to a simmer for about 5 minutes and reduce the wine by half. Our wine has nicely reduced, so now we're going to add our 2.5 cups of stock. And we're basically going to assemble the cassoulet. And then we're going to add our 2 teaspoons of brown sugar. We're going to add our dried mustard. We're going to add our yellow mustard. We're going to add our beans that we have drained. We're going to add back in our bacon that we have drained very nicely. We're basically going to just assemble the cassoulet. And then we're going to add back in our sausage. And we're going to bring that back to a simmer. Now, at this point, you could let this cool down and put it in the refrigerator and save it until you're ready to cook it. Or, in this case, I'm ready to cook this for dinner. So after it comes back to a simmer, we're going to start pressure cooking it. One of the things I like to add into this when I'm adding in my fresh black pepper is I also like to add in just a little bit of chipotle pepper. Now, you don't have to do that, but we tend to like our things a little hotter in our house. So I'm going to add in about 1/8 of a teaspoon of chipotle powder to this, and then give it a good stir and return it to simmer. The last thing we want to put in is our bay leaf. Now, remember, you don't want somebody to choke to death on this, so when you take this out of the Instant Pot, make sure you find your bay leaf before you serve it. Our cassoulet has come to a nice boil, and at this point, if you're wanting to do this ahead, you would just simply take out the pot, put a hot pad underneath it, cover it in tin foil, and pop it in the refrigerator, and it'll keep for several hours. Then, before you're going to cook it, remember to let it come as close to room temperature as it can. It will take longer to cook, of course, if you put it in the refrigerator. In my case, I've already brought it to a boil, and I'm just simply going to close my Instant Pot. I'll put this on high pressure for 45 minutes, and then I'll let the pressure release naturally for at least 20 minutes. The longer you can allow the pressure to release naturally, the better I have found the cassoulet will be, and the more tender the beans. In just a second, through the magic of television, this will be done, and I'll be able to show you what it looks like when we take it out and put it in our beautiful bowls to serve. The Instant Pot has cooked our cassoulet for 45 minutes, and then it has been allowed to naturally vent for 20. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my tongs, and I'm just going to vent any remaining steam. What I usually do is I'll put a towel over my vent just so my steam doesn't go everywhere and doesn't blow all over my light fixtures. And we'll just let that naturally release. And let's take a look at what it looks like. Here's what our cassoulet looks like up close. I'm just going to pull that bay leaf out. And then let's plate it up. I found these beautiful vintage Amari bowls at an antique shop just a few days ago. And I thought they would be great with this beautiful cassoulet. Look at those beans, all of our sausage. That looks so beautiful. And then we're just simply going to garnish with a little bit of flat parsley. Bon appetit, y'all.